All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another WRH Live. That was Night Call by the lovely and talented Sita Korechi, originally by Kavinsky, of course. With me, as always, is my good brother, Draco Pendragon, Harrison McArthur himself. How are you, sir?
I am fine, historian. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm going to do my level best to unfreeze you. I think that should do the trick.
Oh, am I frozen?
You were on the stream, but I think we're good now. I just have to keep your window open.
Okay.
So, welcome to the show, sir. We are discussing. Well, first of all, do you want to say anything about our abortion of a stream a couple weeks ago? That was my fault.
No. Well, let's just say that was a test in how hard I could bang my head against my desk and not have permanent brain damage. And
yes,
my head still hurts from that.
I think I'm done with that kind of subject matter.
Amen to that.
We're just going to stay in our lane from now on. That was. Mm-hmm. So I kind of have like some guilty pleasure YouTubers I follow that kind of cover stuff like that.
Oh, so do I. I think we all have those guilty pleasure YouTubers.
Absolutely. And I think I thought it would be fun to do, but it just ended up being like 2 hours of us just being frustrated.
Yeah, that there are leaps in logic and just pure. That makes no sense. Why are you continuing this line of argument? Stop.
Like that was essentially all it ended up being, was just us saying over and over again, that makes no sense.
Yeah, and me banging my head against the desk.
Yes, yeah. It's
I actually had a bruise afterwards too.
Did you really? Oh,
yeah, a small one, but
sorry to hear that. But
no, self-inflicted. You're all good. Anyway, we are here to discuss the Lost Ninth Legion of Rome.
The Lost Ninth Legion of Rome. I have a very, very loose format for how this should go, sir. I'm fine with it just being mostly just kind of an open conversation, but I guess we probably ought to start with just the basic facts first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So this Ninth Legion, and feel free to fill in if I miss or you have a different take on things. But this Ninth Legion was created, we think, possibly by Pompey Magnus, certainly in the first century BC. They were involved in Caesar's wars, heavy part of that, and then he ended up disbanding his veterans, whom Augustus eventually actually called back, and they fought with Augustus at Actium and all that. They ended up going to Hispania. They get to Britain in 43 as part of Claudius's invasion of Britain, and they actually get all the way up to Caledonia with Agricola. They fight a really terrible battle against Queen Boudica, where quite a lot of them are wiped out. We're pretty certain of that. And they end up settling at York. I believe they actually build York. And eventually they just fall out of history. We lose track of them. Is that...
Well, the way I understand it is the Emperor Trajan, after all of that, he set his sights on Scotland. Back then, I think it was called Pickland, or no, ancient Scotland.
Caledonia, possibly.
Yeah, Caledonia, Scotland, modern day Scotland. So he marches his men up there. They numbered around 4,000 to 5,000 men. So
yes,
and basically, long story short, none of them came back.
Right, and we don't know exactly if that was the case. We do know that the last sure, for a long time, the last sure sign we had from them was in 108, was at York. They have these stamped tiles. Actually, in 2015, they found evidence in the Netherlands of possibly some senior officers. They were at this camp in Nijmegen. We don't know if that was a detachment or the entire thing. This evidence, again, it was only found in 2015. This was years after the movie The Eagle was released, obviously 60 years after Sutcliffe's book. There's this historian, Lawrence Keppie, who is a Scotsman, incidentally. He thinks that this evidence actually dates to the 80s, when we know that soldiers from the Ninth were being pulled back to the mainland to deal with, incursions there. I'm not entirely sure why some believe that evidence dates to 120. But again, we do know that Domitian was pulling soldiers to the continent. So,
yeah, because England at that point was a lost cause. It was basically,
it was a disaster. Absolutely.
Yeah, one could argue that the British Isles conquering that was ancient Rome's Vietnam.
That's a fair comparison. I like the modern Afghanistan comparison as well. We do have all kinds of literary evidence of I forget the exact historian, but he's talking to Marcus Aurelius, and he's like, in the time of your grandfather, we lost many soldiers in Britain. So does that refer to the loss of the Ninth? I don't know.
Possibly.
It may. It may also just refer to losing to Boudica, where they lost essentially all their foot soldiers. So.
Yeah. Long story short, do not piss off Celtic queens. It does not end well for anyone.
No, it does not. So you recently watched a documentary from '77, I think you said.
Well, actually, no, it wasn't a documentary. I said miniseries, but it was actually a dramatization of a novel called The Eagle. It's actually this miniseries is actually the original version of the Channing Tatum Jamie Bell movie, The Eagle.
Okay, so
very, very, very almost similar plot lines, but
also based on Sutcliffe's book, in other words.
Yeah. So made in the 70s, and I really enjoy it. It's there's no big glorious battle at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of character development in that.
What is the final thesis for what happened to the Ninth of the 77?
Well, the plot line of the Ninth, it's nigh on identical to the 2011 Jamie Bell Channing Tatum movie Eagle, where Marcus and his slave Eska try to go north of Adrian's Wall to find the gold standard eagle of the Ninth.
Right.
Yeah, because they think, all right, if we don't get that, and if those tribes ever try to invade us, if they have one of our eagles, which is sort of like the heart and soul of the Legion,
absolutely,
that's going to be a massive morale boost for them, and sort of like a big propaganda loss for us, because hey, they wiped out one of our legions, and they have the thing to prove it.
Right, literally mirroring Augustus's experience with Parthia, a century earlier. They had a bunch of eagles that they'd gotten when Crassus invaded, and they just wiped out Crassus's entire army. And then Augustus didn't want to fight Parthia for him, because that, obviously, no intelligent Roman would want to fight Parthia. So he just negotiated the return of the eagles, and that was like this incredible like propaganda victory for him. You know, people saw those eagles come back in a triumph, and they're like, oh my God, Augustus is the real deal. So, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Sutcliffe used that as kind of a basis for that. I know she did base the plot line of the eagle on an actual artifact that was found in Scotland.
Yeah, they found an eagle standard that had lost its wings, like buried in the floor underneath this Roman villa. And actually, that's how the 1977 miniseries ends. It's where they just put it there because the character Marcus is talking to his uncle and his uncle's friend, who's a senator. He's like, we brought it back. Can we reform the ninth? And he's like, no, we can't bring it up. We won't do it, because in the miniseries, the ninth has sort of like a very bad reputation.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. I know that the British legions didn't have the greatest discipline. There was tons of deserting, which I think could probably go a long way towards explaining the ninth's eventual fate. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So the series is like, so the old friend is like, all right, we're not going to reform the Ninth Legion, but we are going to give this standard honorable burial, because you brought it all the way back. You went all the way up there, went through that trouble and got it back for us.
And this was made by the BBC, you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube, actually.
I researching this, I kind of came across this like Britain versus Scotland kind of aspect of the story, where the Scottish want to see the Romans as modern day Brits. You know, there's these London-based imperialists, and they cut them off, right? Whereas the British also want to claim this story because they see themselves as like the plucky underdog of the story. It's, you know, David's taking on the Goliath from the continent. You know, it's almost gains kind of like a modern political bent to it. But
oh, come on, guys! It's 2000. It's what, 2,000 years ago? Can't we all play nice?
Oh man, this stuff has such modern implications. It's true, frankly, all over the continent. Like I think we were talking about in DMs how modern Romanians and Trajan's War in Dacia, it has all these like modern political implications with Hungary. Like, did Trajan actually commit genocide against the native Dacians? I think he probably didn't, but Romanian is a Romance language even to this day for a reason. So
yeah, and actually that's why it's called Romania. Rome.
Yeah, right, and why Trajan's still a popular baby name in Romania. But so what is the movie's theory about what happened to the soldiers? I guess getting at.
Well, in the 1977 miniseries, it shows that, like, the backstory is that the Hispana, the Ninth Hispana Legion, it was basically it had a bad name because the officers there were a little bit overly strict when it came to lashing soldiers.
I see.
And their commander was their new legate. I think that's the correct word for the commanding of a legion. Am I correct, sir? You're the specialist in Rome.
Yeah, boy, that's. The military terminology was definitely not my field. I know that Sutcliffe gets it terribly wrong, and she puts a centurion in charge of like an entire legion, which is.
I think you had legates, you had centurions, and you had the rankers, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's about right. Yeah.
So basically, what happens is Emperor Trajan orders them to go invade Caledonia for the greater glory of Rome, and their legate is basically a pompous, stuck-up aristocrat who.
Is it Agricola?
I don't think they don't name the legate.
Okay, because Agricola actually did invade Caledonia with some fair success, actually. But.
Yeah, so he invades, and it's complete and totally bungled from the get go. They're going to this one Roman fort that used to, I think. Yeah, this is after Boudica's rebellion, because they say later on in a later episode that she cursed them when she first arose, and then they got chopped to pieces. And then while they were in Rome, after they got put back together again, the legion, all the local Britons were like, "Get away from us! You're cursed." Yeah. We're live, Hannah. Sorry, that was my sister.
Little cameo.
Yeah, that was my sister and her puppy.
Live streaming, baby.
I'm streaming. Sorry, where were we? Yes. So Legate goes up. They invade north.
Right.
They plop down in this old Roman fort that's been abandoned for a long time. The tribes are surrounding them, and basically infighting occurs in the Roman ranks. Legate gets killed, and a lot of the Romans get killed. The Celts up there are like, oh, this is easy. This is an easy victory. They go in, they slaughter a whole bunch of the Romans. The Romans try to run all the way back to Hadrian's Wall, and right before they get there, the few surviving members of the legion just get wiped out to a man.
Okay.
Yeah, and you find this out. The character Marcus and his friend Eska.
And again, this is the Channing Tatum and Jamie Bell characters from the film.
Yeah, well, in both versions, they meet up with a Roman deserter who tells them the story. Although he's not really a deserter, it's more like he couldn't keep up with the rest of his men because he had a wound, so he just stripped off his armor and ran for the nearest village.
I kind of buy that. I think that probably happened quite a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot that's kind of funky in there. Just the idea that Hadrian's Wall was even a defensible barrier, I think, is pretty shaky and suspect. You know, it was probably not much taller than 10, maybe 12 feet.
Well, it's how many miles wide? Across?
It spans the entire island. It's 73 miles, I think. But there was only an actual defensible tower about every mile, I think. And those probably weren't staffed by more than a half dozen guys at once. I don't know. This doesn't sound like a defense barrier to me. This sounds more like a trading customs post than anything. More like,
well, maybe like a deterrent. More like, all right, not Greeks. No, Greeks are done that way. No, you Celts, you stay on your side of the wall. We'll stay on our side of the wall. We'll all be hunky-dory. Just no one attacks anyone else, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's a roadblock. It's a speed bump, I suppose. But if you were really determined to get over it, I don't think it would be that difficult, is what I'm saying.
No.
I mean, they were definitely trading with the Northerners. Like, this wasn't just like a completely hostile environment. Like, they did have, like, favorable tribes who got this, favorable trading status with them up there. So it strikes me as much more it's like as a means of controlling that relationship than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But how were the Celts depicted in the film you watched?
Well, they weren't depicted as Native Americans as in the 2011 movie. No, they were depicted as like, they're depicted as having like long droopy mustaches, long hair, and tunics. Not the shaven mohawk head with the animal skull jawbones and painted blue faces. Like, no.
I think the director of the 2011 version pretty much admitted, kind of made up that like culture out of whole cloth. It was kind of like the building of a model. Like how would these people have lived? Like, okay, well here's what their resources were. They were close to seals. That was probably a main source of food. They probably used that for clothing. Yada yada yada. So, not a ton of evidence for it. I mean, I think even in the film they speak Gaelic because we just don't have Pictish. We just don't have any versions of it. So they're like, okay, well, Gaelic from the 6th century, that'll just stand in.
Yeah. And most people don't understand Gaelic, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Close enough.
I think there's like 60,000 speakers or something in Scotland, and I guess it was really, really hard to find a kid who could speak it fluently. Like, they had to search like long and hard. But.
Yeah, I actually know 2 Gaelic words. Gundigab, which translates shut up. Huh? Gundigab. And Kushla, which means beloved one. Is actually the name of my best friend's old dog. She passed away a number of years ago.
Oh, it's a great pet name though.
Oh yeah, she was an absolute cuddle. She was a golden retriever, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, shout out to my best friend's late dog.
Oh. Well, do you buy the theory that this? By the way, this is essentially the conventional wisdom right up until late in the 20th century. Like Sutcliffe was paraphrasing the Roman historian Theodore Mommsen, who was the first one to say, yeah, they probably just got annihilated up there. I think Winston Churchill has a book where he repeats it. So is that a theory that you buy?
I do buy it because, let's face it, when you say an army is invincible, and that army believes itself to be invincible, they're gonna get defeated sooner rather than later. That when you get cocky in a fight, you make mistakes, and when you make mistakes, you get hurt, and when you get hurt in a battlefield, you die.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see that.
I mean, for goodness sakes, we know Roman legions can get wiped out, like the Teutoburg Forest Massacre, for example.
So, I'm happy you brought that up, because this is a strange incident in history in that all the theories I hate. I find holes in each and every one of them. So,
of course, there's no such thing as a perfect theory.
Well, this in particular, really all the theories are bad in my opinion. So if they were annihilated, obviously the Romans are not shy about letting us know when they had a legion annihilated, because we have the story of the Teutoburg. And what's more, we have tons of archaeological evidence from the Battle of the Teutoburg. We have, sling projectiles and bits of armor and stuff like that. For the supposed annihilation of the Ninth, we got nothing.
Well, how many years was the separation between the Teutoburg and the Ninth? Like, I assume it was a couple of centuries.
Less than 100. It was probably 70 or 80. No, that's not true. Approximately 100.
100 years between the Ninth getting annihilated and the Teutoburg massacre.
The Teutoburg was about 100 years before.
Before the Ninth got massacred?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before they supposedly got massacred, yes.
Okay.
So, why no archaeology? Why no literary source telling us?
I don't know. Maybe.
Go ahead.
Well, there were survivors from the Teutoburg, correct?
That's a great question.
I mean, I assume.
I don't think so.
I assume that enough people got back to tell Rome, like, this is what happened. Don't go over the Tiber. Is it not the Tiber? No, that's in Rome. What's the river in Germany that they couldn't cross afterward?
The Rhine.
The Rhine River. That's it. Yeah. So maybe they didn't record the Ninth getting annihilated because, well, one, no one got back, and two, like, oh, we have now got two whole legions annihilated to a man within 100 years of each other. It's somewhat embarrassing. We were hoping for another 200 years before another legion got annihilated or something like that. Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like there would probably be a fairly clear account, because Romans were honest about their trauma, and they used that trauma as a reason to do something. If it was, Carthage committing acts against them, well, that's the reason to go take out Carthage. If it's losing the 3 legions in the Teutoburg, that's a reason to not extend the empire, beyond that. So it strains credulity to me that there would be this, like, conspiracy of silence around this, I guess.
Well, but as I said before, the British Isles were Rome's Vietnam, so maybe it was like, all right, let's not kick up a fuss, because it's not worth taking over those soggy bogs of an island completely.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like what were they really getting out of it?
Nothing really. Just
question.
More territory and more slaves and more manpower.
Yeah, Londinium was, quite a settlement, of course, but I don't know. Maybe they were getting something resource-wise. I'm just not aware of it, but there are all kinds of other theories we'll discuss ever so briefly. There's the theory that they were destroyed in Parthia in Marcus Aurelius' time. And there's hints that Americans prefer this because we would like them to be killed by Middle Easterners and by Scotsmen.
What's wrong with the Scots getting their pound of flesh in there, huh?
Well, we like Scotland right now, is the thing. And we're cranky at the Middle Easterners, so we want to believe that theory. There's some suggestion that that's the case. The only problem is there's no evidence whatsoever that the Ninth was present in the East at that time.
Yeah, it's like it's 1,500 miles between Scotland and the Middle East.
It's a really, really long way, and the last we hear anything from the Ninth is the Netherlands. So, and we don't know if that was everybody or, like I said, just a couple of senior officers. So, I don't know. I think that both Parthia and the Second Jewish Revolt, I find equally flawed, I would say. It's gone through this weird, like, bending back, where everybody said they were destroyed in Britain forever, and then they found the Netherlands evidence. They were like, oh, actually, no, they got away. And now it's kind of bending back towards that they were destroyed in Britain. So, I don't know.
Now that's what 2,000 years of history will do to you.
Yes. Yes, this is true. Yeah, it's the theory that I kind of lean towards is that they suffered heavy losses to Boudica and probably in the north when they were with Agricola. And after that, they were probably just kind of disbanded. Like they'd been disbanded before, like whatever was left, I'm saying. They'd been disbanded before. And pretty much anywhere in history where locals end up settling, like they just kind of intermarry with the local populace. Like I was just reading about in China, like
I've heard about that. I think I know what you're talking about. I've heard of this theory.
Yeah, some of the Western villages are like 60% Caucasian in their DNA. So they're on the Silk Road, so who knows? But there's also theories that a legion just ended up there, and a lot of them just became mercenaries, like fighting for the highest bidder. And there's all these stories about like fish scale formations, which could be like a phalanx kind of like Roman.
Testudo?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I probably kind of lean towards the idea that they were mostly annihilated, and whatever was left just scattered. And even the Netherlands evidence, it's like 3 or 4 tiles. So that's probably just a veteran from the 9th who just happened to have something and he left it there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that sounds like the most logical theory to me. Mm-hmm. Now, I think you said on the stream we're also going to be talking about how history influences fictional work.
Indeed, yes. Let's switch gears in that case. I'll let you open.
Now, for those of you who aren't aware, I'm actually writing a book series right now called The Hunt for the Dragon King, and in the background for the background lore of my world, I actually have something very similar to the annihilation of the 9th, which is called the Battle of Ghost Pass. In it,
link in the description, by the way.
Oh yeah, to the video I made about it. In it, the Empire of Sulia is colonizing the continent of Arthuria. Now,
right.
The Sulians, technology-wise, they're about late 1800s, early 1900s. So like Civil War soldiers or World War I soldiers. Whereas the native Arthurians are still Dark Age level technology. So they have swords, shields, spears, but they are a horse nation. So in this background information, the Sulian colonial government sends 76,000 men into wild Arthuria to basically eradicate the Arthurians because they thought, oh, we got guns, we got machine guns, this is going to be a pushover. Only one of them came back.
Yeah, I kind of see the parallels you're making.
Yeah, and basically the colonial government was so scared they basically in this part of my fictional world, there's a mountain range that separates civilization from wild Arthuria, and there's only a few places you can pass an army through, and the pass that the Sulian army took is forever called Ghost Pass, because apparently if you listen on a windy day, you can hear the screams of the dead.
Is that based on Thermopylae?
No, not really. It's basically 76,000 men went through, only one came back, and he brought back the ghosts of the dead with him, or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely see the parallels you're making between, I don't know, like any time in real history, like a powerful colonial force who's technologically superior, like goes and fights this other plucky, but they know the terrain, and they have this sort of.
And they also have stolen muskets and cannons that they took off another army that they also wiped out to a man.
But yeah, those interactions tend to follow kind of a pattern, I guess.
Yeah, like I try to a lot of the big battles in my book series, I try to base them off of real world history. Like a lot of them, since my world currently is set in a like a diesel punk World War II-esque kind of era, because it's a pet peeve of mine that every fantasy story is met medieval times. For goodness sakes, people, there is such thing as Industrial Revolution. Get it on. Just move it already.
I think the reason, well, the reason they don't is because of Tolkien, but the fake reason they give is that they're trapped in this sort of like high equilibrium where there's no like social pressures to improve the technology, because you've got things like magic to replace it, stuff like that. And technology improves because of pressure to change, I would say.
Yeah, well, actually, I remember seeing this one YouTube video. I cannot remember the name of the guy, but he was talking about Game of Thrones, why for thousands of years they've stuck in medieval times. And he said it's because of the dragons. It's because the dragons are around, and basically they're it's basically the dragons are keeping the dragons' power to basically wipe out armies is basically it's the reason why there hasn't been any advancement. And I would counter that argument saying, if we were living in a medieval world and all of a sudden there were dragons around, we would be desperately trying to find a way to kill those things very quickly and very efficiently.
Absolutely.
Which actually is one of the reasons my world actually has that technology, is because people are scared of dragons, and rightly so.
That would be an enormous pressure to change your technology.
And also, magic. Not everyone has magic. Like I never really watched Game of Thrones, but if I remember correctly, not everyone in the show or the books had magic, and they kind of look at it as sort of like this, like wow, like oh, that's strange, creepy.
Yeah, it's extremely minimalist, and it's almost kind of like it's all depicted as like witchery, like there's like sacrifice involved and stuff like that. Yeah, there's no casting spells or anything.
Yeah, well, I would think like if you have like half the population that has magic and can do all this stuff, the other half of the population is going to be desperately trying to keep up with them, like trying to come up with new methods and inventions and technology and whatnot to basically be on the same level as they are.
Yes, absolutely. So the dragons impeding technological progress, I don't buy that at all.
No,
I definitely come down more on your side.
Yeah, if anything, it's going to enhance technological progress. I mean, just to kind of as an example, in the Second World War, like how many technological leaps occurred because of the Second and First World Wars?
Thousands.
Exactly. Now, let's say those wars never happened. What level of technology would we be at today?
Yeah, I mean,
we wouldn't be anywhere near advances. We wouldn't be able to talk right now, I don't think, over this technology.
I think you're probably right. And I mean, the example that everyone comes back to is China. People say, like, why did Europe like storm into the East, with all these guns and everything, and not the other way around? And it's like, well, China had this like pretty settled way of doing things. Like they were pretty productive without having guns. And like they did have gunpowder, but like they didn't have a need for this. Whereas Europe, you've got all this fracture, and everyone's fighting each other all the time. It's a high equilibrium kind of productivity trap, I would say. Where if you're at this kind of stable place, you don't have a lot of reason to like strive and
Yeah. Basically, paradise equals stagnation.
Yeah, in a sense, I'd say that's probably the case, and that's obviously we're not saying like war is a good thing.
No, of course not. I mean,
it's a happy byproduct of terrible events.
Yeah, it's a necessity is the mother of invention and all that. Like
yeah.
And what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about battles that you had.
Yes, and
story elements on.
Yeah, so Battle of Ghost Pass. Now the battle that actually contributed to the Arthurian factions winning that battle was another battle that they had fought 100 or so years before that, called the Battle of Iron Peak. It was basically my world's version of Ishandawana.
I'm not familiar.
So South Africa, 1880 something. The British Empire invades Zululand because they found out, hey, there's diamonds there. So and also they're trying to civilize the Zulus because they have they're a very Spartan-based society. They're a war society, and basically they sent about 4,000 men into Zululand, and then the commander of the British Army split his force into two. He left 1,500 men at the base of the mountain of Isandlwana while he sent the rest of his army to go look for the Zulus. Unfortunately, what he didn't realize is that the main Zulu army was right next to the force of 1,500 men, and they just got completely and totally annihilated. It's the worst defeat of a modern army by a technologically inferior force.
Wow. So did the Zulus have any kind of weapon at the time beyond
they had
native parochial stuff?
They had their spears. They had their I can't remember the proper name of it. Ogazi. It's a spear about 3 feet long with half of which is a blade. You got the cowhide shields. Got your axe, your club, and these things are vicious. I mean, I remember seeing one thing where some experts were using them on a piece of ballistic gel, and it just cut the thing right in half.
Wow.
Yeah, you can use it as a sword, a spear. It's nasty.
Wow.
Yeah, so in my universe, my version of Isandlwana, the Battle of Iron Peaks, it was the Arthurians versus the elves. And the elves are actually, they had flintlock muskets, whereas the Sulians 100 years later had cap-lock muskets, like your American Civil War, and bolt-action rifles. So Arthurians had the leftover muskets from the elves and their cannons. Not a whole lot of them, but still better than nothing, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Did you use anything else from the
ancients?
Antiquity?
Let me think. There's a lot of battles in my world. I'm still trying to figure that. I'm still trying to catalyze them all. Catalyze? Is that a word? It is now.
Yeah.
Trying to catalyze them all.
Catalog and categorize, I think, got towed there.
Mashed together. Let's see. Well, a lot of my world, a lot of the battles take place in the modern day era, which is the year 1943.
Right.
So a lot of World War II tactics take over. A lot of World War I stuff as well. For example, the first Agro-Sulian War, which happened 3 years before the events of the main story, is basically think Operation Barbarossa for the first half, and then World War I trench warfare for the rest of the war.
Yikes!
Yeah, it was not good.
That's a big old invasion.
Mm-hmm. That was
Stalin locked himself in his room for like 3 days when he heard it started that Hitler had betrayed him.
Yeah, like oh no. My friend has betrayed me. Oh, no.
Just a remarkably petulant response that you just don't expect. I love that though. That's something you should use. I think just lock himself in his room.
Yeah, but then he got himself out of it and defended Moscow with all his yes men.
That's right. Yeah. I guess Game of Thrones is probably the shining example of basing a story on history that's very famously based on the War of the Roses that ended up being kind of revolutionary, I guess, just in that it wasn't, this Tolkien-esque kind of good versus evil, which I know is kind of where you more lean towards in fiction. I don't know. I guess Thrones probably inspired a lot of imitators, and that probably became a trend for, I would say, a couple decades. But it's possible we're primed for a return to just some good old fashioned good
guy versus bad guy.
You know who the bad guys are. You know who the good guys are. I mean, look at the return of resurgence of Star Wars. You do have some shades of gray characters in there, but
have you seen the latest episode? By the way, I saw it on opening night. So
I did. I did not see it on opening night. I don't like those experiences, but I have seen it. Yes.
Yeah. Are we going to spoil it in this video, or are we going to let people go and see it for themselves?
Well, I think if we just say spoiler alert, that's fine. We can go there. What did you think?
I enjoyed it, yeah. And spoiler alert happening in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I was very shocked when you hear Palpatine's voice. Obviously you hear it in the trailers, but then when you see him, in the flesh is like,
yeah,
Palpatine, you've let yourself go. I see.
yeah.
Did you crawl out of your grave? You look more zombie than human.
It's kind of amazing to me that Ian McDiarmid was like 38 when he first played the character. So that makeup was just so good. Like when I saw the prequels, I could not believe that guy was still alive.
I know.
But
I thought I you know what, I honestly believe that he had passed away when I heard that they were making the new prequel, the sequel trilogy. Come on, get your
yeah.
together. I cannot talk today.
I thought he would too. Like if you'd asked me in the 70s who was going to die first, like Princess Leia or the Emperor, it'd be. But no, I liked it too. It was fine. I don't have a strong emotional connection to this material the way a lot of people do. So I'm pretty well able to just watch the movie and have fun with it and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it to be life changing. Like the prequels didn't ruin my childhood. You know what I mean? So
no, but I think Duel of the Fates and the Darth Maul duel may have had something to do with that.
Yeah, boy, that was a.
I actually, you know what? I was told. My best friend told me that apparently John Williams was going to bring back all of the major themes from all of the movies.
Really?
And I was really hoping that Duel of the Fates was going to make a comeback, and it didn't.
That's a bummer.
Like, dang it! Like that's the best piece of music in all of Star Wars, next to the Imperial March, of course. But
the battle on the Death Star wreckage, even though it doesn't make sense, is one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars. Period. It doesn't make sense that the wreckage is there. Logically, we see it gets like atomized at the end of Return of the Jedi. But
did we though? Well, like we see a giant fireball, and here's my theory: Death Star goes bang because the reactor inside went critical, and so what happens with an explosion? Everything gets pushed out. So my theory is Death Star cracked like an egg. That was just like the biggest chunk that managed to survive, and it smacked into the one moon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's believable.
I mean, there's always going to be shrapnel for an explosion.
Yeah, fair. That's believable. I can buy that.
And also here's another thing I just thought of. The reason that the first Death Star was completely atomized was because that one was actually designed to fail by Mads Mikkelsen's character, whose name I cannot remember. Like he specifically designed it so if get a photon torpedo down into the reactor, bang, the whole thing goes up.
That's right. Yeah. From Rogue One, you're talking about.
Yeah. So this one, the second Death Star, wasn't designed to fail. So let's assume it's going to. And also, it wasn't completely intact. Like it was still chunks of it. So the explosion wasn't as powerful.
Okay.
Yeah. Like there wasn't enough space for the pressure to build up for it to go, and just little pieces of it. No, it's like there are still holes in it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I had fun. I didn't think too deeply about it, to be honest. Yeah. I was like,
they just switch your brain off and watch the lightsabers. Is all.
I mean, more or less. Like I said, I don't have this like close connection to it the way a lot of people do, which I don't begrudge anybody. Like what you like, obviously. I don't like nostalgia for the sake of it. The fact that somebody has to say I have a bad feeling about this. Absolutely despise it, but everybody else loves it. So I'm in the minority. That's fine.
But when haven't you ever said like, oh, I got a bad feeling about this? Like even if you think it, like that's something everyone has said at least 100 times in their life.
Yeah, but that's like, not why they're doing it.
Like
that's not why they're doing it.
There's so many different versions of it. Like, oh, I got a bad feeling about this. Like, oh, I don't like where this is going, or like, it's one of those. It's one of those universal things that. Everyone can say like, oh yeah, I can see him saying that.
I feel the exact same way about the Terminator movies when
that one I cannot get behind because
if you want to live.
Like I will be back. Stop it. No one says that. Only one person said that, and it was Arnold. The rest, like I got a bad feeling about it. You can plausibly see everyone saying that at least once in their life.
Yes, of course, but that's not why they do it. Is the part that annoys me. It's just to give the freaking clapping seals something to clap at. And again, I'm not a fanboy hater. Like be passionate about whatever you want. There's whatever time in your life. There's nothing with that. It annoys me personally, which I can get over. I still love the movie.
Yeah.
I can get over it. But.
Yeah, so do I. Just and also be respectful with your disagreements.
Exactly. Yeah.
I really wish that they had given was it Dominic Monaghan, the actor who played Merry in the Lord of the Rings. Like I was when I saw him, I thought they were going to give him a bigger role, and then it's like no, he's just like a glorified background character.
J.J. Abrams is kind of funny because he'll cast his friends in these like leading roles where it's like 30 minutes of work on set. Like the Poe Dameron's ex-girlfriend, you see this much of her, that's Kerry Russell from J.J. Abrams' TV show Felicity. Like that J.J. Abrams movie or TV show, excuse me. And he threw her in there. So why the heck not?
Yeah, well, I've never seen it, so.
Me neither, to be honest. I just thought it was funny that he cast like someone who would be very recognizable and put her in essentially a metal burqa, and this is all you see of her. He just wanted to hang out with his friend for a couple days. Like, I can respect that. It's kind of
also apparently he keeps putting Kelvin in his movies because apparently that was his dad's name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like in The Force Awakens, you hear Rey talking to BB-8, like, stay away from Kelvin Ridge. That's where all the bad things are.
Oh, interesting.
And also in the new Star Trek movies, like they call it the Kelvin timeline because it started with the destruction of the USS Kelvin.
Oh, no way. Okay. I've thought a lot about why this new trilogy will never be like iconic to me, and I think it just has 100% to do with when in your life you see it. I can't remember a time when I haven't seen the original trilogy. Like seeing that predates like my childhood memories, so it's just always been a part of my life. So
so you can't remember the first time you saw it.
Nope, not at all.
I can remember the first time I saw Star Wars. It was Empire Strikes Back, and I was way too young to watch it.
Right.
And it was I walked in right when Han got carbonated, and I was terrified.
No. No.
They turned him into a statue.
Yeah.
and then I left the room, and I came back right when Luke got his hand chopped off. So it's like,
oh. Terrible.
Like I'm 6 years old at this point. Like, no, go away.
That's kind of funny. You saw that one first.
Yeah, well, it was
just
on
happened
TV
to be on or something.
Yeah, it was on TV, and my parents were watching it.
Right. That's.
Yeah, I was actually very scared to watch it the next time I watched it, and also Lord of the Rings. I remember my friend had it playing on his VCR, the first Lord of the Rings movie, at his house. I came over and I walked in right when
that's a pretty scary movie.
Yeah, at the very beginning with the battle of the Battle of the Last Alliance, and you see all the orc faces. I'm like,
oh, but no, just on the iconic question, I do think this new trilogy will become that for like young people now.
Oh, doubtless.
Yeah, my roommate's kid's 10 years old, and like his favorite characters are like Kylo Ren and Ben and all the new people, right? So I think that it just has to do with what time you see it in your life, and when you're 30, your soul's dead, and you can't form new likes. You're done. You're done liking things. Everything old is better.
No, now I know what I have to look forward to. Thanks a lot. No, I guess that's what I have to look forward to in the next 4 years.
It's coming. It comes for us all. But
well, maybe you're just more cynical than I am.
That could be. But what do you think about the the Marvelization of Star Wars?
Marvelization?
Well, they're just going to keep making them. Like they'll be making these movies till we're dead.
Well, I reserve judgment on that. Like, if they're good movies, by all means, bring them in. If they're just mountains of dung, shove it under the rug and pretend it never happened. Yeah,
fair enough.
You cannot, like, I guess people will get tired of Star Wars eventually, but it's an absolute juggernaut of a franchise. This is like the Hindenburg when it was first wheeled out.
Right.
It's not going to sink until it sinks.
I think the only one that's performed badly is Solo, and everything else has been just.
Yeah, but it made it made what was it? How much money did it make?
it was a success, but it was badly by their standards, I guess. Relatively poor. But yeah, I'm kind of fine with it too. I think a lot of people are worried that it's a watering down of it, where like when all you had was the original three, it was like this like beautiful shining example of filmmaking. But now it's like whatever. I like good sci-fi movies. Keep making good sci-fi movies. It's a fun universe.
Yeah. Keyword being good. Don't make them bad. Don't make bad movies.
Exactly.
Although no one intentionally goes out to make a bad movie unless you're Tommy Wiseau, I guess.
We hope. That's. I haven't seen The Mandalorian, which everyone says is wonderful.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but it's one of my Christmas gifts actually.
Oh,
it's not Baby Yoda; it's just regular Yoda.
Yeah.
Say hello, Yoda.
Oh, little fathead Yoda. It's adorable.
Yeah, but I don't have Disney Plus yet. I'm honestly thinking of getting it just to watch The Mandalorian. But from the clips I've seen,
going around,
it's good. It's very good. It's very Western-y feeling.
Yeah, I love that. Heck yeah. You need to let some let as many different good filmmakers have their own take on this universe as possible. That's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Let freaking Tarantino make a Star Wars movie.
Oh no, that's so dear.
Honestly, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, just so long as what's his face made the Transformer movies in Pearl Harbor. Don't let him anywhere near the franchise.
Michael Bay, yeah.
If he comes in, the stormtroopers will be shooting to kill. Then they will actually know how to aim. Then don't let him anywhere near the franchise.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know.
Although
good.
That being said, a Michael Bay Star Wars battle scene that can actually work.
I probably couldn't tell the difference between the Transformers movies, just because there's so much junk going around. You can't even tell what's happening. Like you could probably put it side by side, and I wouldn't know.
I don't watch South Park, but I remember seeing this one clip of it where he was in front of a board of like Hollywood directors, and he was like giving them his script ideas, and they're like, these aren't, and the directors were like, these aren't scripts, these are special effects, and he goes, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, I've seen like 3 episodes of South Park, excuse me, but everybody reacts in horror when I say that, but I don't know.
I don't watch the show either. It's too crass for my liking.
That's right. Yeah. Well, coming up on winding down, sir. Got anything else on? This will probably be how these things go. We'll start with a topic and
then go off on a tangent.
Let it meander. Yeah. I guess we started out talking about Rome's 9th. I think it was space aliens. Personally.
Sure. Just blame it on the aliens.
On the wiki page, they actually talk about it. They're like, there's a story where they walked into a cloud and vanished. Like, that's.
Oh.
I almost miss being the age where I could like entertain such things. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, I had this book of like supposedly like real ghost things that happened. It was this big, thick like Time Life book. It was like talked about like the Mary Celeste and all, like, oh, they saw a crew member go over the side and then they saw his face in the water or something. I don't know. The ability to be scared is scared by such things is precious, because now when you get cynical and old, you just, I don't know. I miss that feeling, I suppose. So
anyway,
aliens.
Yeah, probably it was most likely aliens. Now was it aliens or was it the Predator aliens?
Oh man, that is a crossover waiting to happen.
Yeah, Roman soldiers versus Yautja. That's actually what Predators are called.
That'd be so dope.
Yeah,
but like they're all like surrounding like a xenomorph or something. Oh my god, some enterprising animator has to get on this.
YouTube, get on it.
That would be like $1 million franchise.
Until it gets run into the ground by the studio execs who don't know what they're doing.
Probably, but I think it's brilliant. But anyways, 9th Legion probably just got mostly killed and then took a bunch of Brigante wives. Who I bet if you checked the DNA of people up there, it'd probably show like, I don't even know if you could do that. Like a 23andMe of like Scottish villages. Probably see some Italian in there. But
yeah, most likely.
Anyways, time to sign off. I linked your video and your channel, but if you'd like to sign off, feel free, sir.
All right. This has been Harrison McArthur, Draco Pendragon, and the world-renowned historian signing off. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and to check out my video in the description below about my crazy story that I just told you about. And until next time, guys, peace out.
Thank you for remembering to say all that, my friend. Till next time, be good, kiddos. We out. Soon.
Against the grain of the dystopic claims, not